Hey, what is happening everybody? John here, back with a different type of video today, and yes, my mic stand is still broken, but you know what? I think I prefer it like this. Different type of energy on the videos, and different type of energy on this video, because I want to talk about Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Yes, finally not calling it Into the Spider-Verse. Saw this last week, and I have to say, I think the movie is a masterpiece. Now, I loved the previous one, went to go and see that with my little boy when it came out, and we just had an absolutely incredible time. Big fan of Lord and Miller, generally Lego Movie, the Jump Street movies. But this, the sequel, is just operating on a different level entirely. But let's broaden it out a little bit. Let's talk about the state of superhero movies. Now, I'm not a huge fan. I do think the genre peaked and can't really recover from Endgame. When you have, spoilers here for Endgame, I'm sure if you're watching this, you've seen it. When you have a bad guy with that much charisma in Thanos, who is looking to and then execute on killing or disappearing or snapping out of existence half of the universe's population, I think that's what it was anyway, let's at least say half the Earth. And then you have all of the superheroes together, bound together, and end up defeating him with all of the biggest doodahs with the stones. Like, everything happens in those two movies. How can you possibly go beyond that? Well, the only way that they can go beyond that is by going into this multiverse thing, which unfortunately, for the most part, for almost every single movie, completely eliminates stakes. And when you've brought back all the dead people from the dead, you kind of know that nothing matters. And when everything is at stake, quite often nothing is at stake. And these movies are just playing out over and over and over again. Some are okay, some are terrible, but I'm very bored of the whole thing generally. This, though, in Across the Spider-Verse, is different. This, despite being a multiverse movie, despite being so grand in idea and scope and concept, becomes a much more deeply personal movie. It's a film not only about all these Spider-Men across all these Spider-Verses and incredible visuals, and we'll get onto all of that stuff in a minute, but mostly a film about parents having to let go as their children age. As a parent myself, that is definitely the relatability that I got out of it, and probably if you're younger, you relate more to Miles in his, growing up and becoming his own person and learning his place in the world, especially as somebody who's an outsider, as we learn throughout the film. Now, without going into any spoiler territory, you have a multi-leveled story, this grand concept that is the only time I think I've seen the multiverse actually executed with some sort of stakes, with some sort of investment, and as well as visually depicted incredibly. But you also have these personal, familial stakes with Miles Morales, his parents, and everything else going on there. And because of that, this movie delivers in a personal and human way, in a way that superhero movies haven't since Endgame, and perhaps haven't at all, really. Even the great films like Nolan's Batman films don't deliver these sorts of emotional stakes, which is amazing. This is a cartoon, ultimately. I must admit, for 2 hours, absolutely gripped by the storytelling here, but I have to talk about the visuals of this film. I put a tweet out after it finished, literally just put the poster art out, even a low-res version, and just said, I don't understand how this was made by humans. The tweet absolutely banged. I wasn't expecting it to, it was just the first thing that popped into my head. But that just goes to show how many people have seen this movie and how many people concur with what I said and how many people were blown away by what is put on screen. The film took, 5 years or something since the last one, and you can see it's all on screen. That time is all on screen. The first one, Into the Spider-Verse, visually incredible, animation style, what is put on screen, amazing, but this is just on a completely different level. The combination of art styles, the visual quality of the facial animation, these characters are more human and display more human emotion than most real actors in real superhero films. But what's quite incredible is that you can have these intense personal scenes where we're close up on the actors' faces and having these moments, but also this unbelievable action with animation styles and colors and I don't know how they did it. I've watched animated movies since, like all of us, basically since I was born, and we've seen the technology change completely, especially when you're my age, going from traditional 2D into 3D. But this is just something else entirely. And I come from a gaming background as well, and we've seen incredible leaps and bounds in that world, but still, I just don't know how it was made. I don't know how they've managed to do this. There are scenes in this film, a chase through New York, a chase somewhere else, some of the fight scenes, but just some of the way that they move between the different, we've seen this in Marvel movies already, where they go between different universes or multiverse strands or whatever the hell you want to call it, and they have a different visual style. We saw in Doctor Strange and it was quite effective there, but here's just another level entirely. And the way that the characters from each universe, I don't even know the language you're supposed to use, but then brought into each other's universes using that art style. some of it even real world art style, some amazing cameos in there, it's just otherworldly. Honestly, it's otherworldly. From beginning to end, I was just gripped, like I said, by the story, a genuinely impactful, intelligently written plot, despite the grandiose nature of it. And I was captivated, utterly blown away. And captivated is the wrong word. I was blown away by the visuals, by the soundtrack as well, which you'd already reacted to on the channel. Metro's soundtrack working perfectly in the film. The hummingbird scene, incredible. You want to run out of superlatives. I've heard people calling it the best film they've ever seen in a cinema. I've heard some people calling it the best film they've ever seen. I'm quite confident in saying I think it's the best superhero movie of all time, just based on that first viewing. I can't see how anything can touch it. It captures everything I loved about the character of Spider-Man in general. And now the character I've learn't about with Miles Morales over, one movie and a PlayStation game. I didn't really know anything about Miles Morales before these things came out. Well, 2 PlayStation games. But definitely, as well, for me, one of the best films that I've seen in the cinema. I highly recommend you do go and see it on a good screen with good sound. I'm sure it will still have a great impact if you watch it on streaming later when it drops, but definitely a reason to get into the theatre to see this fucking thing. Honestly, going on even further, I think once you get into the multiverse level, you have to be kind of nodding and knowing and fourth wall breaking at times. And Across the Spider-Verse does this literally all the time. We'll show comic book covers as kind of like scene breakers, in the same way that a Star Wars movie would do those crazy wipes. It's constantly letting you know that it knows that it all comes from comic books and the ridiculousness of the multiverse as a concept. It allows it to be something that we accept that exists, we accept that it has stakes, and yet we also know that it's ludicrous, that there are all these Spider-Men of different versions. I mean, I don't want to spoil any of them, but some of them are so ludicrous that they're just there as gags. And yet still, you have these moments of real pathos and emotional resonance in the film. Lord and Miller are kind of masters of that. I mean, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, going all the way back to that hilarious movie, daft movie, but again, emotionally resonant, packed with references, packed with gags, packed with emotionally beautiful moments, unbelievable to look at, incredibly gripping as a story, and as a middle part of a trilogy, definitely nods to The Empire Strikes Back, just in some of the tone that this movie sets. We won't go any further than that. Yeah, and tremendous antagonist in there, in Spot, visually unbelievable, and the way that the enemy scales up. They take things from video games, they take things from comics. The fourth wall breaking, I meant to say, actually reminds me of when wrestling is at its best. When wrestling knows that the audience knows, but doesn't feel the need to reference that fact, and we can all just get into the thing of it being real, in inverted commas. That's when fourth wall breaking works at its best. We all know what's going on, let's all dive in together. And that's what Across the Spider-Verse 2, that's what this movie does. So yeah, massive, I'm just rambling, massive Big JD recommendation, excellence, 10 out of 10. Yeah, let me know your thoughts on the movie in the comments. If you want me to do more stuff like this, TV and movie on the channel, then let me know. I do like to talk about this stuff, keeping up with current shit. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll catch you on the next one, alright? Peace!